Hufflepuff apart. "Fighting is about skill," Voldemort said, raising his wand. Several spells floated into the air, hanging in place. "This is my style. Some of you have already seen its power." "Yes, Professor. Absolutely amazing," Justin Finley burst out, excitement in his voice. Voldemort smiled at the curly-haired boy. Justin was one of the few he genuinely wanted to win over, someone who'd nearly ended up at Eton. With his status and intelligence in the Muggle world, Justin was a prime candidate for Voldemort's long-term plans. "This is a unique feature of my magic," he went on. "Professor Snape's style is sharper, defined by sheer intensity." He flicked his hand, and the hovering spells vanished. "What you need is to discover your own magical strengths and push them to their limits. But before that..." Another flick of his wrist, and 3 new spells appeared in front of him as he named them: Armor Charm, Obstacle Barrier, Disarm. The trio of spells floated motionless, drawing wide-eyed admiration. "Who can tell me the nature of these 3?" he asked. The students exchanged blank looks. It was clearly beyond them. Voldemort turned to his junior and assistant, head prefect Robert Hilliard. "Defense, control, and offense?" Robert ventured. "Correct." Facing the class again, Voldemort continued. "There are many defensive spells. You don't have to choose the Armor Charm. The same applies to control and offense, but you must make a choice." The students nodded, still unsure where he was going with this. "Once you decide, train until it's habit. Attack first, then defend, then control. Or defend first, then control, then attack." The 3 spells spun in the air, shifting order over and over before he stopped them. "Make a routine, then drill it until it's in your bones." The sharper students began to get it. Don't try to match Gryffindor in bravery, Ravenclaw in intellect, or Slytherin in cunning. Your strength is perseverance, constant practice until technique itself wins your battles. That is the fighting style I've designed for you. When he finished, Voldemort gave Robert a small bow. Robert returned it, and Voldemort struck instantly. Disarm, Obstacle Barrier, Armor Charm. Robert's wand flew from his grip before he could react. When he tried to retrieve it, the barrier snapped shut around him. Voldemort was already shielded, unfazed even when Robert attempted silent, wandless magic. "Victory through technique. Professor, that's brilliant. I think it's even better than sheer courage," Justin called, grinning. Others nodded eagerly, asking for spell suggestions that would suit them. Voldemort didn't hold back. He offered options and explained different combinations. There were no duels, no brawls. Hagrid and Robert, once freed, shared a quiet sigh of relief. They both knew the professor's unspoken goal: keep Quirrell from letting the students fight. And they'd succeeded, though it felt like it had little to do with them. When the younger students left, Voldemort taught 2 more sessions for the upper years. The training grounds were the same, but his demands were lighter. Older students needed only guidance, not mass practice drills. By the time the evening classes ended, the week's lessons were done. With the weekend free, Voldemort could finally breathe. Chapter 57. Malfoy's Lesson. On Friday night, Lucius Malfoy brought Draco home to Malfoy Manor. "Let me see if you're hurt," Narcissa said. But before she could move closer, Lucius steered Draco into his study. "Lucius, go easy on him. He's still a child." Narcissa's voice called after them, but Lucius didn't reply. "Father," Draco's voice trembled. He'd never seen Lucius so serious, and it left him uneasy. "I have important things to tell you, things that will require you to change," Lucius said, lowering himself into a silver-trimmed chair, his pale eyes fixed on Draco. "But before that, you're going to read this." He tapped his snake-headed cane against the floor, and a thick book floated from the desk into Draco's hands. He gripped it tightly. The cover read, "History of the Malfoy Family." "Time is short. I don't expect you to memorize it, but you will know the main points." Lucius checked his pocket watch. "I've prepared a potion to keep you awake. If you need anything, find Hera. Dobby is occupied." It all came so fast, Draco barely had time to speak. "I'll see you tomorrow morning," Lucius added, gesturing toward the heavy volume. "I expect results." The study door shut with a sharp bang. Standing there, Draco felt confused. He thought his mother had sent him home, but clearly this was his father's doing. But why? Chapter 56. Draco's Restless Night. Draco stared at the heavy book in his hands, baffled. Still, he was nothing if not obedient, especially with Lucius. He never dared talk back, and he had always respected his father's decisions. Sigh, looks like this will be another sleepless night. Draco approached his desk and slowly opened the thick family history book, reading under the soft glow of the night lamp. In truth, it wasn't difficult for him. First, as a pureblood noble, he had been raised to read constantly. Skimming a thick volume like this could be tedious, but picking and choosing passages was no challenge. Second, Draco already knew the Malfoy family history quite well. While he hadn't seen this particular book before, he had read other family chronicles that surely overlapped. Thanks to these two factors, his father's task didn't seem particularly daunting. What he couldn't understand was why his father insisted on this right now, though he assumed the answer would come by morning. That night, Draco read tirelessly, aided by magical potions. Until dawn, fatigue never fully caught him, though his eyes grew dry and strained from the long hours. Knock, knock, knock. A sudden knock pulled Draco's attention. Who would arrive so early? Come in, he called. Narcissa appeared, carrying a tray of breakfast. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she had been crying. Oh, mother, what's wrong? Draco asked, gesturing toward her eyes. They look like. I'm fine, Draco, truly, she said softly. She set the tray on the desk, pushed the book aside, and placed milk and cake before him. Eat quickly. Your father will be here soon. He has something to tell you. You have to tell me what's wrong, or I won't eat, Draco pouted, knowing his mother couldn't resist him when he threatened to starve. Your father wants to instruct you. Narcissa dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. I tried to dissuade him. I wanted you to grow older before receiving the Malfoy family education, but he refused. Like the ancestors in the book, accepting the family's necessary lessons? Draco asked. That's fine. Father went through the same. But he's not happy about it, Narcissa added quietly, guiding Draco to sit and signaling him to eat. We had hoped you'd enjoy a happy childhood, to be trained around 4th or 5th year. Her tears fell again, leaving Draco confused. Why not wait a few more years? Eat now, child. Your father will explain everything soon. She wiped her tears, ran her fingers through Draco's pale blonde hair, and watched him eat. Though full of questions, Draco patiently waited for his father's explanation. Yet the look in his mother's eyes, something felt wrong. No matter what, remember, Draco, your mother loves you. After Draco finished, Narcissa bent down and hugged him tightly. As she rose, she glanced back one last time. Don't talk back to your father. He only wants what's best for you and the Malfoy family. Draco nodded blankly, watching her leave, lost in thought. He couldn't understand why his mother seemed on the verge of heartbreak. Click. The door opened. Lucius Malfoy entered, dressed in formal wizard robes, the Malfoy family crest pinned to his chest. Every movement radiated authority and seriousness. Draco had seen this demeanor from his father before, but never directed at him. Sit, we need to talk. Lucius tapped his wand, and a chair floated over to the desk. Draco obediently took his seat. I didn't expect this to happen so soon, but the time has come, his father said gravely. Father, I don't understand, Draco frowned. To make you a true Malfoy, like our ancestors, that's what I mean. Any questions? I've always been, only in name, Lucius interrupted. We are pure-blood wizards, one of the 28 sacred families. We live in Wiltshire, England. We have our own estate. Draco nodded repeatedly. He already knew all this, but that's only what you see. Lucius drew another wand from his own, and with a wave, caused the massive Malfoy family history book to float between them. Another flick opened the thick tome, releasing a misty vapor that slowly spread outward. Amid the parting mist, a shimmering mirage appeared, a battlefield rising from the illusion. Arrows rained down like torrents, spears stood like a forest. Armored warriors clashed fiercely, while fallen warhorses cried out in agony. The air was filled with battle cries, dying pleas, commanders' orders, and swift horsemen carrying messages. The Battle of Hastings, the birthplace of England's Malfoy family. Lucius's deep voice resonated behind the mirage. He waved his wand lightly, and the scene shifted, revealing the battlefield more clearly. 2 infantry legions fought fiercely, their blood turning the ground to mud. They roared and fought relentlessly. Retreat was not an option. Suddenly, a cavalry unit swept in at an angle, lances leveled, tearing into the fray with brutal precision. Harold's cavalry! Hold the line. The Duke will support us. Fight to the death. No retreat. Charge with me, charge! The shouts came from deep in their chests, calling their scattered comrades back together, urging unity and defiance in the face of the charge. But against mounted warriors, the foot soldiers were helpless. One by one, men were skewered by lances or crushed beneath pounding hooves. Yet they clenched their jaws, swallowing their cries so as not to weaken their brothers' resolve. "Whose soldiers are those?" Draco asked, his blood surging with excitement. "William the Conqueror's finest." From behind the illusion, Lucius's voice was low, almost reverent. "And under the throne's banner, the bravest of them all, the Golden Cavalry." At his words, a smaller, more disciplined force broke forward. They were fewer, but they met the onslaught head-on, fearless and unyielding. At their front rode a man in a silver helmet, a broad shield in one hand. In his other, barely visible behind the shield, was a short wooden stick, a wizard's wand. Pale golden hair streamed from beneath his helmet, catching the wind as his horse thundered forward. His armor was spattered with blood, proof of recent fighting. This is, Draco faltered, unable to finish. "Our ancestor, Armand Malfoy," Lucius declared. Inside the vision, the first Malfoy raised his wand. Fire erupted, engulfing the enemy riders, their screams echoing as they tumbled from their saddles. Clang! A lance smashed into his shield, cutting the spell short. Armand shoved the weapon aside, swung his wand, and another rider toppled as though struck by a boulder, crushed moments later beneath the hooves of his own comrades. Clang! 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 More riders came on in waves. The iron plating on Armand's shield, emblazoned with the Malfoy crest, was dented and peeling. Fighting to keep his balance, he refused to yield an inch. Casting spells in such chaos was no simple feat, but his composure allowed him to seize fleeting openings. Flashes of light flared and more enemies fell. Above the shield, his pale gray eyes blazed with resolve. "The Golden Cavalry! The Golden Cavalry! Lord Malfoy is here! Follow him! He'll break their charge!" Rallied by the cry, the infantry tightened their ranks and surged forward. The vision rose higher, showing the full battlefield. At the tip of the Golden Cavalry rode Armand, pale golden hair streaming, his lance driving deep into enemy lines. "I never knew our ancestor," Draco began, but the words caught in his throat as a rider's spear drove into Armand's left shoulder. "Ah!" Draco shouted in shock. Lucius's expression hardened. "Keep charging," Armand commanded, blasting the attacker aside with magic before yanking the spear from his own wound. Blood still flowed despite his healing spell, but he spurred his horse on, forcing his way back to the front. The Golden Cavalry cut through the enemy like a blade, wheeled, and struck again. The vision lifted higher still, then slowly dissolved into nothing. "Did our ancestor win?" Draco asked anxiously. "Watch," Lucius said. The scene shifted to a study, simpler than the one they stood in, but bearing the same bones. Armand appeared again, older now, hair streaked with gray, face lined. He sat at a desk, gazing out the window for a long moment before turning to the vision. "I am Armand Malfoy," he said, voice deep and hoarse, a long scar running from his mouth to his chest. "I show you these battles not to boast of courage, but so you understand how dearly our legacy was bought. Guard this place well. Let your children grow up here in peace. Let your women live free from fear. Let your ancestors rest. Give all that you are and be a true Malfoy. Make your ancestors proud. Let the Malfoy name shine forever." His eyes softened, the scar at his mouth twitching faintly, as if watching children playing just beyond the glass. A whisper of wind, and the vision folded back into the book's pages. Father and son met each other's gaze. In both, the same unshakable will burned. To protect the family was their ancestors' command, and every Malfoy's sworn duty. "Ancestor Nicholas, why did he kill those violent muggles?" Lucius asked. "Because they planned to hunt wizards, our enemies," Draco replied without hesitation. "Lucius Malfoy I, why pursue Elizabeth Ferns?" "Because Muggle hostility toward wizards was rising. He sought her favor to change the tide, but failed." "Brutus, why revise wizards at war?" "To rally the wizarding world when Muggle persecution was at its height." "And Septimus, why secretly influence Minister Ancesi's Osbot?" "He thought wizards had grown weak under the statute of secrecy and tried to change things, but failed." Lucius nodded, pride threading through his solemn expression. His son knew the history well. "One last question. Your grandfather." Lucius glanced up at the high ceiling. Abraxas Malfoy still lived upstairs, though rarely seen these days. Your grandfather endured the backlash of a dark curse just to hex Minister Nobby Leach. Why? If this truth ever escaped Malfoy Manor, it would rock the wizarding world. Rumors had long tied Leach's sudden resignation to pureblood factions, some even named Abraxas, but no proof had ever surfaced. Lucius's question, however, left little doubt. The answer would never leave these walls. Because he was Muggle-born and enforced policies that oppressed purebloods. Draco's eyes darkened. Everything that had happened since last night was pushing him to grow up fast. As one of the 28 sacred pureblood families, the Malfoys have a duty to end his reign, even if it costs us our lives. I am proud of everything my grandfather did. Lucius nodded, a brief, satisfied smile flickering across his lips before he returned to his usual serious demeanor. Look at what our ancestors accomplished, then look at yourself, Draco. You must be ready to bear the responsibilities of a Malfoy. I will, Father. It's just I don't know how, and I don't understand why it has to be now, Draco said, frowning. For reasons we cannot speak of, but we must be ready. Lucius avoided mentioning Voldemort, knowing that revealing his existence now wouldn't benefit either of them. But I will teach you what to do. Please, Father, I'm eager to learn, Draco said, leaning forward, almost tipping off his chair, eyes bright with anticipation. Master the magic every Malfoy must know and excel at. Lucius teased, holding back the answer. Draco leaned even further forward, half off the seat, eyes wide with expectation. Occlumency. Ah, Draco fell back, surprised. He had expected some mysterious powerful spell, not this. He'd been introduced to occlumency since childhood. His mother had explained it countless times. Surprised, Lucius waved his wand, and the book floated back onto the desk between them. Did you think Narcissa taught you occlumency just because it was some obscure arcane spell to play with? Draco blinked, recalling his mother's lessons. Seen from this perspective, her actions now seemed very deliberate. Do you know how I escaped blame after that failure? Being controlled by the Imperious curse? Ha! That excuse is used by dozens, but very few actually break free, Lucius sneered. Because of the mental shield spell? Draco asked. Of course, Lucius nodded. They tried legilimency on me, even Veritaserum, but none of it worked. Draco's eyes widened in surprise. Veritaserum didn't work? Every true Malfoy masters the mental shield. Your grandfather did, I do, and you will too, Lucius said firmly. But Father, Draco hesitated. Can the mental shield really resist Veritaserum? The mental shield doesn't actually resist anything, child. Lucius shook his head, correcting him. It's an illusion, Draco. The shield creates false images for others to see. That's not real resistance. Draco nodded slowly, remembering his mother's teachings, which matched his father's explanation. Then tell me how to use it, Lucius commanded. Yes, Father, Draco said decisively, thinking carefully. Don't think, don't recall, don't feel. Use that to block legilimency from probing your thoughts and emotions. Lucius nodded in approval. Not just that, lock your heart. Sympathy, anger, fear, curiosity, everything must be sealed. Understand? Draco nodded again. I guess the potion has worn off? Lucius asked. Draco hesitated, then remembered his father meant the potion from last night. Yes, Father, I'm a little drowsy. Lucius nodded with satisfaction and waved his elm wand. What is Father planning? Legilimency. The curse struck Draco's mind, flooding him with memories all at once. I know I'll be sorted into Slytherin. Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. My name is Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. On the train to Hogwarts. Ha ha ha! In potions class, laughing at Harry Potter with Crabbe and Goyle. Whoosh. Lucius waved his wand again, ending the magic. Draco shook his head, pain radiating through him. Why are you still fixated on him? Lucius asked, puzzled. Draco twisted uneasily. He's pure blood. I want to win him over. Childish thinking? We are on opposite sides. From the moment his parents died, nothing can be undone, Lucius said seriously. Draco nodded but didn't dwell on it, quickly changing the subject. You made me drowsy to enhance the training, right? Yes. You're not hopeless yet. Lucius's words made Draco smile proudly, but before he could reply, the elm wand waved again. Legilimency. Once more, Draco's mind went blank as memories surged, this time the scene of Professor Quirrell striking him, a moment etched deeply in his memory. Lucius ended the magic, and Draco's thoughts cleared. When he looked up, his father was watching him with a strange, unreadable expression. What is it, Father? Draco asked, frowning in confusion. I told you not to provoke him, to stay away. Why won't you listen? Draco hesitated. His father was right, of course, but you've said so much. I can't remember it all. The thought went unspoken. He bowed his head and said, I understand. I'll keep my distance. But why? Before he could finish, Lucius waved his wand again, and Draco's thoughts were laid bare once more. Damn it. My father will punish him, make him leave Hogwarts. Draco's voice echoed in the hospital as he confided in Crabbe and the others. Look, my father's already taken action. He'll be expelled soon. Draco muttered to Crabbe in the corridor. Damn it, the headmaster disagrees. But my father said I'll go home this weekend then, he told Pansy Parkinson at dinner. When Draco finally emerged from the memories, he found his father's gaze had grown even more intense. In truth, Lucius was close to breaking inside. What has my son done? He dared to provoke the boy who lived, drawing Dumbledore's attention. He even defied his master, attempting repeatedly to get him expelled from Hogwarts. Who gave you the audacity to challenge both the White Wizard and the Dark Lord at the same time? Lost in thought, Lucius froze, realizing many of Draco's memories all began with, my father. Coughing twice, Lucius cleared his throat, steadying his pounding heart, and looked back at his son. It was time for a serious conversation. Our family has wealth, estates, influence, and pure-blood status, but if you keep tempting fate like this, you could lose it all. Chapter 60. The Old Bee Takes Action. On his day off, Voldemort set aside the forbidden books. They were mentally taxing, and he needed a break. Not tonight, Hagrid. Thanks for the invite, but I'm going to watch the match. He declined Hagrid's dinner offer, and though Hagrid and little Harry looked hopeful, Voldemort's mind was made up. After a morning of reading, he stopped by Hogsmeade following lunch, and then traveled to Manchester to watch the English League One match between Manchester United and Crystal Palace. 1-0, a narrow victory for Manchester United. Few goals, but a beautiful game. Newly arrived Peter Schmeichel made several spectacular saves. Voldemort left satisfied, whistling happily, and returned to Hogwarts without speaking to Ferguson. The good mood lasted until evening. Just as he was about to open Repair Rhythm, bad news arrived. Professor, the headmaster's been looking for you for half an hour, but I couldn't find you, Percy said anxiously at his office door. Voldemort's mood vanished. If he could avoid the White Wizard, he would. He only cared about Hogwarts' library. Everything else was irrelevant. All right, do you know what it's about? Voldemort asked casually, putting the book aside. No idea. I saw Gemma asking Snape, and others are fetching different professors. A small relief. Voldemort's mood improved slightly. He thanked Percy and headed to the 8th floor. Soon, he entered the headmaster's office, already crowded. Kilo, you're a bit late, Dumbledore said, tired but warm. I went to watch football. Manchester United vs. Crystal Palace 1-0. My team won, Voldemort said excitedly, his enthusiasm obvious. The professors looked stunned. Dumbledore blinked. The Muggle game where they kick a ball with their feet? Yes. My whole family has supported Manchester United, even before I entered the wizarding world, Voldemort said proudly. You should watch more Quidditch, Dumbledore suggested. Professor McGonagall suddenly lit up like a child sharing a secret. That's the real sport. Your family would love it. I've seen Quidditch, Professor, but I still prefer football, Voldemort said, dismissing it lightly. Quidditch seemed frivolous to him. McGonagall looked surprised, but was about to argue further. Dumbledore intervened. Perhaps now isn't the time to debate Quidditch. Could you update Kiro on the situation? He said with a wry smile. Oh, of course. Dropping her playful tone, McGonagall grew serious. We need to set up protections around the secret on the 4th floor to prevent it from being stolen. Voldemort blinked at Dumbledore. That thing? Yes, Dumbledore nodded, saying no more. Other professors glanced at Voldemort, clearly unsure of what was being protected behind that door. Why not just keep it with you? That would be safest, Voldemort asked, though he already knew the answer. For reasons I cannot speak of, Dumbledore replied, shaking his head. Kiro, don't dwell on the why. Prepare your defenses. Voldemort nodded, accepting the directive, though he wondered what purpose it served. Was it really just to train Harry Potter? The other professors offered little clarity. The meeting ended quickly. Each professor had to submit an individual plan to Dumbledore by next weekend. Back in his office, Voldemort rubbed his chin, ideas already forming. Troll? Forget it. He had better options. Yet he dared not act too hastily. He had to appear neither too eager nor too conspicuous. Dumbledore's mind was sharp. Just as with Muggle sports, he enjoyed them, but it was only a smokescreen. Voldemort liking football? No one would believe it. He needed more smokescreens, subtle enough to frustrate Dumbledore, but without drawing attention. Teaching had already brought him scrutiny. No need to invite more. So on the last day of the break, he kept a low profile, reading in his office all day, taking a sunset walk by the lake. At night, he indulged in forbidden books until his renewed energy waned, then went to bed content, ready for a new week. The next morning, he woke early to continue reading, had breakfast delivered by Dawa, and at exactly 8:55, made his way to the dark arts classroom on the second floor. To the 6th and 7th year Ravenclaws, Voldemort remained Snape 2.0, delivering sharp critiques of their papers before moving on to new lessons. After covering the material, assignments were given and spells practiced. Some students improved, but none could fully master the Patronus charm. Of course, Voldemort criticized this, yet privately, he wasn't worried. The spell was difficult, requiring the channeling of genuine joy, an emotional energy far removed from unforgivable curses, but equally demanding. He himself could not perform it. Years of inner conflict had long drained any source of happiness he once had. At noon, he returned to his office via the internal stairs, Dawa arriving promptly with lunch. Even during breaks and dinner, he stayed in his office, reading. By evening, after class ended, he remained inside. After a high-profile first week, he adopted a low profile. His life became a straight line between class and office. Students rarely saw him elsewhere. Several professors, familiar with him to varying degrees, checked in, concerned. Voldemort assured them nothing was wrong. He was simply absorbed in study. Initially surprised, they gradually accepted it. After all, a Ravenclaw with an insatiable thirst for knowledge was hardly unusual. Life settled into a routine. Voldemort happily immersed himself in the sea of knowledge, unable to escape its pull. Within days, he finished reading all the books on restorative magic, except the forbidden texts. Seeking more spells, he made a trip to the library, where he spotted Hermione. Though she restrained herself, Voldemort sensed she was waiting for him. He exchanged a brief word and left. An 11-year-old girl barely warranted his attention. Percy, on the other hand, sought him out twice because Voldemort was being targeted. For uttering "Damn Slytherin," he faced retaliation. All the Slytherins ganged up on him, leaving him frustrated. Voldemort advised confronting them head-on. Slytherins respected strength. Without it, drawing your wand was the only option. Surrender, and they would drag you through the mud. That was simply who they were. By Wednesday night, word came from the Old Bee. Everyone had shared their thoughts, and anyone with good ideas could join the discussion. Voldemort replied he was still considering it. He had no intention of facing Dumbledore alone. Everything would wait until the weekend. Chapter 61. A Different Draco. On Thursday, during Ravenclaw class, Voldemort taught the house's unique defensive techniques. Wisdom conquers all. These tactics were already familiar to some upper years, but hearing directly from Voldemort gave a fuller understanding. Unlike Gryffindor's recklessness or Hufflepuff's diligence, Ravenclaw's wisdom leaned toward the art of war. Know yourself and your enemy, and you will never lose a battle. Be vigilant in times of peace, prepared for war. This mindset emphasized broad understanding, long-term planning, and avoiding conflict without preparation. Practically, it meant learning from the recklessness of some and the diligence of others. The bar was high. Other houses might struggle, but the studious, clever Ravenclaws handled it easily. Organizing their thoughts and following a study plan, they always emerged wiser. Combat techniques for various scenarios were developed, and practical battles scheduled. Ravenclaw, usually quiet in combat, now embraced real fights enthusiastically. Professor Flitwick felt both pride and concern. As a dueling expert, he wanted to teach these skills, but if the students grew too restless, they might imitate Gryffindor's reckless style. Trouble indeed. His prized pupils were becoming a headache. Voldemort, however, paid no mind. His goal was to stoke the fire. Putting out flames was the headmaster's problem, not his. That afternoon, in Slytherin class, he taught their signature offensive magic, Power Winds. Unlike the other houses, Slytherin consisted mostly of purebloods, ensuring strong magical power. There was no need for elaborate tricks, just raw, relentless offensive spells. Mastery of 2 control spells sufficed, the rest was all attack. Disarming, stunning, fragmenting. If you could endure it, you were strong. This blunt style delighted the Slytherins. Percy's powerful demonstrations inspired admiration. Strength ran in their blood. Even academically talented Percy Weasley showed remarkable offensive skill. Lessons went smoothly, and to Voldemort's surprise, Draco caused no trouble. More than that, he was unusually calm and restrained. Though his eyes still revealed displeasure toward Percy, he remained silent. Draco's gaze flickered and avoided eye contact with Voldemort, catching the teacher's interest. He knew Draco had been called home by his father over the weekend, but the details were unclear. Yet today, Draco's behavior was noticeably more mature. During combat practice, Voldemort sought him out. "Good performance, Draco." Voldemort stood close, forcing Draco to meet his gaze. "Which offensive spell do you want to focus on? I think I can offer some advice." Draco met his eyes briefly, unable to look away. In that instant, Voldemort noticed something unusual: restraint, concealment, coldness. This boy was deliberately locking away his emotions. Mental shield spell. Voldemort made a precise judgment instantly. Malfoy family training, no doubt. Curious, he quietly cast a silent legilimency curse during their conversation. By keeping it silent, the effect was weaker, and Voldemort controlled it carefully. Draco felt nothing unusual. Delving into his mind, he glimpsed. Ignore him. Refuse to engage. Control your emotions. Stay calm. No arrogance. Listen to your father. Draco's thoughts were a tangled mess. Voldemort quickly abandoned any attempt to reason with him. 11 years old, and already learning the mental shield spell. That was ahead of the curve. Still, Draco had clear talent. Learning the mind-sealing curse was, in Voldemort's eyes, invaluable. This obscure, little-known magic seemed tailor-made for dark wizards. It allowed a dark wizard not only to hide dark, scheming thoughts, but also to restrain their own desires. The Death Eaters never truly knew Voldemort's plans, not even Dumbledore. Had Dumbledore accurately predicted his thoughts, Harry's parents might still be alive. Even in his disembodied state, Voldemort had mastered the mind-sealing curse, which gave him the courage to face Dumbledore directly. But he didn't dare show it as blatantly as Snape. Those cold, hollow eyes were Snape's trademark. If Voldemort acted that way, the old bee would storm his lair that very night. So when Voldemort used the mind-sealing curse, he didn't show restraint. Instead, he projected a different persona outward, blending it into his behavior to confuse others. Putting on that performance was painful, which was one reason he disliked meeting Dumbledore. Yet the mind-sealing curse was valuable, and Voldemort decided to grant Draco some advantages. Saturday came quickly. By arrangement, he was supposed to submit homework that night, but for Draco's sake, he took the day off. The excuse? A Manchester United match. Even Dumbledore understood, sending a supportive message. Do what makes you happy. It helps ease the fatigue of work. What a remarkable headmaster. No wonder Hogwarts thrived. Before entering Old Trafford, Voldemort stopped by Ela's Owl Emporium to send a handwritten diary to loyal Lucius Malfoy. It contained Kilo's insights on the mind-sealing curse, filled with practical guidance showing how psychological understanding aids mastery. Analyzing emotional peaks helps control and growth. Voldemort fully agreed and gifted the book to one of the few subordinates he actively engaged with, a Christmas present. Lucius was stunned. An early Christmas gift? By Merlin's beard? Is this really from my master? Had he been confounded or cursed by the Cruciatus? Christmas gifts weren't supposed to be kind. They were usually Avada Kedavra. Despite the shock, Lucius read the note seriously and decided to give the advice a try. So on Sunday, Draco was brought by his father into the Muggle world. Merciful heavens, it was Draco's first real exposure. And the first thing he did? Visit a doctor. My dear father, I'm not sick. Draco, I'm sick. I need tickets for treatment. Chapter 62, Voldemort. I have a bold idea. A fragrant scent filled the headmaster's office. As Voldemort stepped inside and inhaled, he felt his energy spike. What is that? He asked, glancing at Professor McGonagall. A stimulant potion. Snape told me not to take more, so I switched to this. Dumbledore said, rubbing his temples. Sorry, Headmaster, is the board causing trouble again? If it's nothing. Before he could finish, Dumbledore waved him off. I can handle that. But there's more. Enough of that. Tell me your idea. What challenge do you want to design? Troll, Headmaster. Voldemort didn't linger, answering directly, standard, straightforward. A troll? McGonagall raised her eyebrows. She hadn't expected that. Why? Dumbledore asked. Few professors would pick a physical attack-focused opponent, and a troll brings unpredictability, Voldemort shrugged, offering a plausible excuse. He didn't care much about placing a weakened troll a first year could defeat. That was for Kiro and the Headmaster to sort. A good choice. Strength and image fit well, Dumbledore nodded. McGonagall didn't object, trusting Dumbledore. Seeing no resistance, Voldemort felt the decision settled. Yet he had another thought. Actually, Voldemort's voice drew their attention again. I have a bold idea. Both looked at him, intrigued. Dumbledore even gestured for him to speak freely. I want to introduce a Dementor. Voldemort's suggestion drew wide eyes from McGonagall and a shocked glance from Dumbledore. Explain your reasoning, Dumbledore requested. No, Headmistress, that's not possible, McGonagall immediately interrupted. You know they'd get inside, and we can't control them. Hold on, McGonagall. Let's hear Cairo out first, Dumbledore said gently, turning to Voldemort. I faced those creatures at Gringotts. You're concerned about them too, aren't you, Headmaster? Voldemort asked. Dumbledore nodded silently. In that battle, they used unforgivable curses on Hagrid. Voldemort noticed McGonagall's furrowed brow, but pressed on. Most who excel in dark arts can't perform the Patronus charm, so... You're right, Dumbledore acknowledged. Headmistress, McGonagall began, clearly displeased. Dumbledore raised a hand to calm her. You make a good point, but I can't allow it, he said. Letting them into the school, especially the castle, is far too dangerous. Such beings would have too great an impact on the children. Voldemort frowned. Dumbledore was correct. If Dementors entered the castle, keeping them from feeding on students' happiness would be nearly impossible. What if they don't enter the castle? Voldemort asked. Dumbledore looked at him, puzzled. Ahem. Voldemort cleared his throat and revealed his true thought. A troll for the 4th floor, but for the Maple Leaf training grounds. Kiro, we're not discussing the Maple Leaf training grounds, McGonagall snapped angrily. You're still hung up on your previous suggestion, but as I said, it's too dangerous. Voldemort shrugged helplessly and cast a pleading look at Dumbledore. As McGonagall said, it's too dangerous, Dumbledore said firmly, though he left a sliver of room. You may explain your reasons and try to persuade me. Headmaster, McGonagall warned again. McGonagall, we must hear differing opinions. Perhaps Kiro has a valid reason, Dumbledore said, inviting Voldemort to continue. There are several reasons. At first, I simply wanted a strong enough enemy for the 5th to 7th years. Otherwise, the training grounds lose their purpose. Dumbledore nodded, but his expression showed it wasn't enough. Later, while preparing lesson plans, I realized the students don't know many powerful spells. Not one from 5th to 7th year can perform the Patronus charm. They're too weak. Again, Dumbledore nodded, expression unchanged. Having a real Dementor should spark their motivation. They need to be pushed, Voldemort said. Good thought, but not enough, Dumbledore replied without hesitation. I cannot put the children at risk for that reason alone. Voldemort frowned. There's also the nature of Dementors themselves. Explain. They can't reproduce, but they multiply by splitting after feeding on happiness. And as far as I know, there's no way to kill them. Their numbers only grow. Before he could continue, Dumbledore interrupted. Don't worry, the number of Dementors is carefully controlled, and the conditions for them to split are difficult to meet. There's no need to fret about the future, he said, directly dismissing Voldemort's concerns. Voldemort could only nod resignedly. His hope of openly entering Azkaban was dashed, though he dared not show disappointment. Perhaps it's necessary after all, McGonagall suddenly said, drawing everyone's attention. You're actually changing your mind? I'm curious why, gesturing animatedly, looking almost amused. McGonagall shot him a sharp glare, rarely worn. If I didn't know better, I'd swear you two have some sort of thing going on. Voldemort thought darkly. You said that person is still alive, right? If he returns, the Dementors might side with him, and then controlling their numbers would be difficult. McGonagall said seriously. Voldemort frowned, unsure how to react. Should he show surprise? Fear? He looked somewhat stunned, but not completely dazed. As expected, Dumbledore glanced at Voldemort with a complicated expression, too complex for him to decipher, and the headache he had didn't help. If that's the case, it really is necessary to strengthen the children's abilities in this area, Dumbledore murmured, rubbing his temples, clearly troubled by a new problem. Chapter 63. Welcome to Azkaban. Azkaban was established after the international secrecy law took effect. At the time, it was clear that small wizard prisons were impractical. Prisoners desperate to escape often made noises, smells, or flashes that attracted Muggle attention. After many twists and turns, in 1718, the North Sea island inhabited by Dementors was chosen by then Minister of Magic Damocle's role as the prison site. Thus, Azkaban was born, housing British wizard criminals and, centuries after Hogwarts' 4 founders had passed, effectively acting as its 5th house. Neither Professor Quirrell nor Voldemort had ever been there, until the Dementor training camp program was approved, granting them the chance. Getting to this point wasn't easy. First came the challenge of safely using Dementors. Several professors collaborated and eventually found a solution. Next came passing the Board of Governors review. The House Elves had no authority, but proposing to introduce such dangerous creatures into the school gave the governors every reason to reject it. Everyone expected Malfoy to cause trouble, or perhaps use the situation to force Dumbledore's hand. But to everyone's surprise, he didn't. A wise decision, Malfoy said at the board meeting. Let those Muggle-born wizards learn the wizarding world isn't entirely safe. Maybe then they'll leave sooner. Pureblood rhetoric was usually unpopular, but the governors themselves were mostly purebloods, and few openly opposed his views. When a group of purebloods gathers, pretense is often optional. Dumbledore was clearly displeased, but to ensure the proposal passed smoothly, he stayed silent. A group of pureblood governors, motivated by the idea of intimidating Muggle-born witches and wizards, surprisingly approved the plan. Professors found it amusing, knowing full well that Muggle-borns were no cowards. With the proposal passed, the governors pressed for action, and the ministry soon granted its approval. The next step, sending school representatives to Azkaban to find a suitable Dementor. Originally, McGonagall and Quirrell were assigned to the task, but midweek, Harry Potter revealed extraordinary talent with a broomstick. Obsessed with Quidditch, McGonagall was distracted and voluntarily gave up the mission. Flitwick took over instead, which Voldemort considered a good arrangement. Being around McGonagall made Voldemort uneasy. Her close ties with Dumbledore meant he always had to watch his words and actions. Flitwick was different. Part goblin, he respected and supported Dumbledore, but he wasn't a Gryffindor through and through, nor a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Voldemort had also been monitoring the Harry Broom incident closely. He needed to gauge Draco's status. Draco was destined to be an important Death Eater. The result was promising. Draco played it smart. He hadn't provoked Harry himself. It was his 2 followers. Voldemort was certain they acted under Draco's instigation, but still thought Draco handled it well. What he needed wasn't a well-behaved child. It was a capable Death Eater. Should Draco be the kind to soften and stand for justice at critical moments like in the stories? Come on, I'm Voldemort, the villain. Just because I seem harmless doesn't mean I'm good. Good guy card? Denied. In high spirits, Voldemort set out with Flitwick, eager to reach Azkaban, only to be intercepted by old Madam Honeybee's arrangements. The sea wind was fierce, and the wooden hull offered little comfort. But that wasn't what put Voldemort in a foul mood. What irritated him was close at hand, his second brother. Is it true that Dementors were created by dark wizards? Moody, do you know? Flitwick asked cheerfully, glancing at Voldemort's so-called second brother. No idea, Moody replied coldly, one eye fixed straight ahead while the other rolled wildly before settling on Voldemort. A grim smile twisted his scarred face. When Moody smiled, life and death felt unpredictable. One eye stood guard, the other watched everything. You're curious about me, Kilo. What exactly are you curious about? Moody's hoarse voice cut sharply, almost a challenge. Hey, Moody, don't be like that. He's still a kid, Flitwick interjected. Moody's expression twisted into disdain, a feat for a face already scarred and missing part of a nose. Wizards these days are soft. Wizards in the past weren't like this. He pulled a bottle from his belt and swigged from it. Kilo, if you have questions, speak up. I won't kill you. Not before you become a dark wizard. Flitwick sighed, patted his head, and glanced at Voldemort, silently warning him not to provoke the hot-tempered ex-Auror. Don't think I don't see this. Moody put the bottle away, pointing to his magical eye. It's always watching. I'm curious about the magical eye. How does it work? Voldemort asked before Flitwick could respond. Does it see the world as it really is, or differently from a normal eye? Moody laughed heartily. Once a powerful curse blinds one of your eyes, you'll find out. Voldemort shrugged, smirking. He was the Dark Lord, not some black pirate. Why would he want a blind eye? It's a gray-black world. Many things aren't clear, but it lets you see the truth and danger, Moody continued, finally piquing Voldemort's interest. The magical eye is a major category in ancient alchemy. Using it drains magic continuously, so it's best avoided unless absolutely necessary. Seeing Voldemort's curiosity, Flitwick added more explanation. Thanks, Headmaster. I don't want to use it, just curious, Voldemort said with a smile. He turned his gaze toward the horizon, spotting a thick fog rolling in where sky and sea met. Azkaban, he said. Moody also saw the dense mist. That's our destination. Welcome to Azkaban. Many of these prisoners were brought in by me. His face bore a fierce, proud grin. Many of my Death Eaters are here, Voldemort thought, withdrawing his gaze from Moody. Chapter 64. Dementors. The island was shrouded in mist. Entering it, the damp cold seeped into their bones, making shivers unavoidable. Have some chocolate. Moody pulled a large slab from his worn coat pocket, breaking off pieces for Voldemort and Flitwick. It's really cold here, Flitwick said, taking the chocolate. I should have dressed warmer. It won't help, Moody said, shaking his head. Dementors drain happiness and bring the cold. You'll understand once we're inside. Following his finger, they saw in the distance a long, narrow fortress, its crumbling walls covered in moss, standing starkly against the gray landscape. Wait a moment. The strike team will meet us here. If we rush in, we risk provoking the Dementors, Moody warned again. That was why Dumbledore insisted he accompany them. Azkaban wasn't Hogwarts. They needed someone who knew the fortress well. Also, Moody added seriously, I know you all can cast the Patronus charm, but unless it's life or death, don't use it. It could trigger a riot. Voldemort and Flitwick exchanged a glance and both nodded in understanding. As they talked, a figure appeared from a distance and soon joined them. Mr. Moody, glad you could make it, the newcomer said with respect. Headmistress Flitwick, I didn't expect to see you here, Moody replied, his tone deepening. Senior Quirinus, I didn't think you'd be here, Flitwick answered, her voice warmer. All right, Markto, this isn't the time for catching up, Moody cut in, snatching 3 badges from Markto's hand, keeping one for himself and giving the other 2 to Voldemort and Flitwick. Wear these. They help the Dementors identify you. As Voldemort pinned his badge, he quietly asked Kiro in his mind, Who's Markto? He's my junior, Kiro answered promptly. I taught him the Patronus charm. He wanted to become an Auror in 7th year, but ended up on the strike team. You close? Voldemort asked. No, just acquainted. We lost contact after graduation. Satisfied there were no hidden connections, Voldemort let Kiro rest again. I knew you were coming, but I had a prisoner transfer first, so I'm late. Markto rambled as they walked, the others mostly silent, moving steadily into the fortress. The damp cold grew sharper. Happiness drained from Voldemort's mind. His Linzuo personality slipped away, and his true self resurfaced. Do you want to rest first, or work? We're here on a mission. Voldemort cut him off. He frowned, then forced a smile. Sorry, Markto, I've never dealt with Dementors before. I'm not used to it. I know, Senior Quirinus. It's tough at first. Everyone gets irritable, but you adjust quickly. Talking helps shake off the bad mood, Markto said with a small, strained smile. Talk to the Dementors early. Get out of this hellhole as soon as you can, Flitwick added, looking worn himself. Moody, gruff as ever, seemed unaffected. Maybe this is a mistake, suppressing the remnants of their true nature, Voldemort thought as he followed Markto deeper inside. The outer layer holds lighter offenders, no Dementors here. They serve a few months and leave. No one tries to escape, so no one makes things worse, Markto explained. Passing the first iron gate into the 2nd level, The air grew colder, and happiness drained faster. This level holds those serving years, fewer prisoners, and the Dementors here are more rational and communicative. You should find one here, he said, pointing toward a dim corridor. By the faint torchlight, a towering figure appeared, over 3 meters tall, cloaked and hooded, its body floating. Up close, a hand protruded from the sleeve, dimly glowing, gray, thin, scabbed, as if rotting underwater. A withered wind hissed from beneath the hood. Markto stepped forward, letting the wind brush over him, then recoiled in pain. He's willing to cooperate, Markto said. I explained your purpose. This one's fairly docile. We'll take your advice, but we need to learn more. It's crucial for the children's safety, Flitwick said. How do you communicate with them? Get close to their mouths. The wind carries their thoughts into your mind, Markto explained, adding quickly, but watch for their kiss. Sometimes they can't control the impulse. Flitwick nodded. How many Dementors are in Azkaban? About 100 known, Markto replied. There may be more deeper in the fortress, but no one wants to count. How many on this level? Voldemort asked. 12 or so. The rest guard prisoners deeper inside. Those are wilder and harder to handle, Markto said. Check on those Dementors, Moody suddenly ordered. While we're at it, I want to see the prisoners I caught. Make sure they're serving their sentences properly. Flitwick glanced at Voldemort. Seeing no objection, he nodded. Have some chocolate first. It only gets more depressing further in, Markto said, handing it out as he led them deeper. As they passed the cells, Voldemort glanced at the prisoners. Most sat vacant-eyed, hollow, more walking corpses than humans. Get ready. These Dementors don't like cloaks. They're pretty ugly, Markto warned, opening a door into a darker, more sinister area. They hadn't gone far when a Dementor appeared. Unlike the cloaked ones, this was truly hideous. Gaunt and shriveled, no eyes, hollow sockets covered with thin gray skin, mouth a gaping void. Damn ugly, almost as bad as that noseless one, Voldemort thought bitterly. This Dementor was far less approachable. The moment it appeared, Voldemort's mind flooded with painful memories, 10 years of soul battles, agony, and torment. Badge, watch closely. We've got badges. Go feed elsewhere. Get lost. Markto barked irritably at it, clearly recalling unpleasant memories himself. The Dementor turned away but kept glancing back, leaving a menacing impression, as if sizing up prey on a platter. Ignoring Markto's harsh tone, here they were, duel masters, the strongest Auror and the Dark Lord himself. Who knows if the Dementor would have dared to glance back like that if it truly understood their identities? Most of the prisoners here are serious offenders. The largest group arrived 10 years ago. I'm sure you all know who I mean, Markto said, deliberately casting a glance at Moody. Indeed, many had been captured by him. Moody's power was undeniable. 10 years has long since stolen their happiness. That's why the Dementor just now acted so recklessly, Markto added, seeming to defend the creature's behavior. The 3 of them didn't care, following him deeper into the prison. The deeper they went, the more Dementors appeared. They pressed against the cell doors, sniffing inside, but most left disappointed. Even a couple married for 10 years might lose their joy, let alone those who had spent a decade among Dementors. Happiness was long gone. Antonin Dolohov, he's a brutal one. Sometimes curses nonstop, Markto said, stopping before a cell from which a beast-like growl echoed. I remember him. Molly Weasley's 2 brothers died at his hands, Moody said coldly, peering inside. Flitwick stretched on tiptoes but was too short and gave up. Voldemort leaned forward, peering through the cell's small window. Dolohov's face was pale and twisted. He crouched deep inside, growling like a wild animal ready to strike. Voldemort remembered him well. In his memories, this loyal Death Eater had been broad and strong, but now only the large frame remained, gaunt and weak. Damn Dementors, they'll kill you all sooner or later, he thought. His remnant soul didn't care much for his Death Eaters. They were tools. But with Lin Zuo's consciousness merged in, these were his loyal subjects, his trusted agents, those destined to fight alongside him someday. How dare they be treated like this? A surge of rage flared, but reason kept it in check. Voldemort without joy was terrifying enough. Bartemius Crouch Jr. used to be here, but he's dead now. This cell is empty, Markto said, pointing ahead. You just died, you and your whole family. My wisest, most cautious, loyal, and powerful subordinate is alive and well. Voldemort's fury flared again. and he silently cursed his junior. I remember him, Moody said. He nearly escaped trial, but, Quirrell, what's wrong? Moody suddenly stopped, and the others looked at Voldemort, who was patting his head. Nothing. Losing happiness reminded me of the horrors in the Forbidden Forest. I'm trying to dispel those thoughts, Voldemort explained. In truth, he wanted to stay sane. His brutality combined with Lin Zuo's nagging made him feel on the verge of splitting apart. Two completely opposite souls fused together had always been a huge problem, but only now was it fully showing. Have some chocolate, Senior Quirrell. Patting your head won't help, Markto said, offering him a piece. All right, you go on ahead. I'll follow behind, Voldemort said, taking big bites. Little effect, but the taste was decent. The group pressed on, occasionally encountering Dementors. Under Markto's firm control, none dared approach recklessly. Little Sirius Black, the one who betrayed the Potters, he's always silent. Markto stopped at a cell. Everyone peered inside. Even Flitwick floated up for a closer look. Sirius had once been one of his favorite students. Voldemort glanced through the bars as well. Black's handsome face was pale, but not twisted. He looked up briefly, but said nothing. Despair seemed the only way to describe his state. The pure bloodline must continue, so Black can't die, Voldemort told himself, seeking a reason not to kill him. This one holds Sirius's cousin, Bellatrix Lestrange, Markto said at another cell further ahead. A ruthless one, Moody said gruffly. I heard Snape had a close relationship with her. Voldemort feigned surprise, glancing at Flitwick. Maybe she pulled Snape to her side, but I don't know the details, Flitwick shrugged. Snape is trusted by the headmaster. We all know he's innocent. Moody shrugged too, though his meaning was likely the opposite. He glanced inside once more, then turned and walked away, Flitwick following suit. Voldemort leaned in. Bellatrix sat curled up on a chair, twisting to offer him a ghostly smile. Her thick, tangled hair and haggard face had diminished her beauty, but those haunting eyes still made his heart race. Even as a lingering soul, he remembered her beauty. When they first met, she had just graduated, prime youth. And then, his lingering soul still held desire for Bellatrix, and Lin Zuo's consciousness merged with this desire, creating a complex emotion that strengthened his resolve to act for her. Impulse was the devil. He had to remain calm. Voldemort touched the spellbook at his waist and walked on, expressionless. Next came another notorious Death Eater, but to Voldemort, also a loyal subject. Moody recounted the pursuit of this Death Eater, while Flitwick's eyes gleamed with envy. He clearly wished he'd taken part in such battles. Voldemort kept his expression neutral, and Markto looked at him with admiration. After Moody finished boasting, the group resumed their journey. Markto continued his introductions, Moody bragged about his past, and Voldemort watched the state of his loyal followers. Walking through Azkaban, looking down the line, so many devoted subjects. Voldemort's heart ached. These are my loyal servants. Look at what's been done to them. Chapter 66, Restrained Dementors. A withered wind surged from the dark hollows, chilling Voldemort's face. It didn't smell foul, just faint decay mixed with dust. He stared ahead. If this Dementor came any closer, he wouldn't hesitate to cast a dark spell. Fortunately, this one was rational. Voldemort sensed its thoughts through the wind, a vague, muddled, yet real consciousness. Quiet would come if it obeyed. What happens if you cast the Dementor's Kiss curse? Voldemort asked Flitwick, who was conversing with another nearby Dementor. No idea, but you can try, Flitwick shrugged. Then, flicking his wand, he muttered, Dementor's Kiss. Brave, but doesn't he want to check with Markto first? Voldemort thought. Suddenly, Flitwick shuddered, his wand trembling violently. Voldemort had no idea what was happening. Interrupted spell, Flitwick murmured, weakly turning his head. Disarm your weapon, Voldemort ordered, acting without hesitation. He caught Flitwick's flying wand as the professor collapsed, convulsing. Cold, don't hurt me, Flitwick whimpered, disoriented. Voldemort didn't leave him there. Carrying Flitwick to the resting area beside the castle's main hall, he set him down carefully. What happened? Moody asked cautiously. Attempted the Dementor's Kiss curse, Voldemort explained. Foolish, Moody growled before producing chocolate and feeding the still shivering but slightly recovered Flitwick. Don't use mental spells on Dementors. They only create a path for them to feed on happiness, slightly less direct than the kiss itself, Markto warned. Voldemort nodded, concerned. Will the headmaster be okay? A few days rest and he'll recover. But if he tries to communicate with Dementors again, it'll only make things worse, Markto replied. Looks like I'll have to finish this alone before tomorrow night, Voldemort said with a bitter smile. Senior, being around Dementors too